It was such an ugly deed. I want to believe that she never knew what happened.
A brutal killing.
There's never a motive to kill a 16-year-old high school cheerleader.
A dark mystery with multiple suspects.
Did she get kidnapped? Did somebody pick her up on the road?
It's almost as if he was trying to insert himself into the investigation.
He had a reputation of being on the criminal side of the law.
You know those kids know things. You know those kids talk.
The truth will be revealed.
We said, you made all those choices, and you need to pay the price.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. The border between Texas and Oklahoma is one of the least populated in America.
Montague County, Texas, and Jefferson County, Oklahoma, are only separated by the Red River. You've got farming communities on both sides, working class for the most part. You really wouldn't know if there wasn't a bridge and a river there that you were crossing a state line.
There was a rancher and his granddaughter who were crossing the bridge. And the rancher looked out into those murky waters. And he saw something floating. And he thought that there was a calf that had fallen dead in the river. Then his granddaughter said, "Grandpa, I believe that's a body."
When police arrive, they find the signs of a violent slaying scattered across the landscape.
The victim had sustained severe trauma, and all of it from the rear. The back, the buttocks, the shoulders, the head. It was consistent with a high-powered shotgun.
They were shot 9 times, which is not normal. That's overkill.
We were able to determine from the autopsy that a particular brand of shotgun shell was used, and it was Winchester.
And the forensic odontologist compared the dental records with the x-rays of the victim, and they matched up perfectly to the missing cheerleader from Waurika.
7 days earlier, Heather Rich had vanished from home 37 miles north in Waurika, Oklahoma.
Heather was a 16-year-old girl that wanted to be popular. She was pretty. Everybody knew her.
Heather was an intelligent girl. She had a good, caring, loving home. Came from a good family, good people. There's never a motive to kill a 16-year-old high school cheerleader.
A joint homicide task force, including Lydia Williams from the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation, Lane Aiken of the Texas Rangers, and Chris Hamilton of the Montague County Sheriff's Office, must now determine how Heather's young life ended.
It's imperative to establish a timeline in a disappearance. You have to come to know the victim. You have to come to know the victim's families. and their acquaintances.
Waurika is this small little town.
They took a lot of pride in their football team. They took a lot of pride in their kids.
Everybody knew everybody else. Everybody knew everybody else's business. It's just a little bitty community that was very close-knit.
It was like any other small town. They were not used to experiencing such a horrific murder. Her parents were shattered by the events that had occurred, and they were exceedingly cooperative with the investigation. Heather Rich was last seen at home on the night of October 2nd. It was a Wednesday night. And based on the evidence that we gained from the medical examiner's office, we believe that Heather had been in the water for about a week.
This suggests Heather was killed within hours of when she was last seen that previous Wednesday.
The night she disappeared, her mom came in and had a $300 phone bill, and she was not a happy camper. The last word she said to her was, "All you do is cost me money." And she's always regretted that.
An hour later, she had already washed her hair. They said it was unusual for her to wash her hair before she went to bed. She normally did that just before she went to school in the mornings.
Heather got ready, supposedly ready for bed. Then we believe she snuck out the window.
The next morning, Heather's parents go to wake her for school.
They went into her room. Her bed was made, and Heather was not in the bed.
Parents' initial reaction was panic.
They even said she'd done it before. She'd sneak out, but then she'd come back. But that didn't happen.
Another family member then recalls an incident that had taken place the previous evening.
She'd taken a phone call, and one of her brothers had, as little brothers will do, I think he was kind of snooping in.
He heard his sister say, "Oh, isn't that sweet?" Little brother asked Heather, "Who are you talking to?" And she said she was talking to Carly, another cheerleader. We were able to go back and look at the call logs, and it showed that that call had come from a payphone. And that was about 10 p.m. that night.
Most people are harmed by people they know.
So our first thought was that whoever made this phone call was likely involved in the murder.
They focus their attention on the woman Heather claimed to have been talking to.
Carly and Heather were best of friends. They were on the cheerleading squad together. And according to Carly's mother, Carly had been grounded, so she did not have the opportunity on the night of October 2nd to have made a phone call from a payphone.
When they ask Carly who she thinks Heather was speaking to, she gives them two names.
Carly knew that Heather's past boyfriend was Randy Wood. And Carly also knew that Heather's current boyfriend was Josh Bagwell. Randy and Josh were friends. and they both had fond feelings for Heather. Carly told us that in Randy's mind, the relationship between Heather and Randy had been extremely serious. But that was not the case with Heather. Heather had actually broken off the relationship and then had taken up with Josh Bagwell. That type of situation is wrought with difficulties.
Either one of those two would have been easy choices for who she was talking to that night.
Being in love is a dangerous thing. You can't necessarily anticipate how you're going to react if you're spurned or if someone else steps into the love triangle.
All I knew is she had talked to somebody. She sneaks out the window, and you can't really assume anything after that.
Detectives focusing on the murder of cheerleader Heather Rich have their first two suspects, her new boyfriend Josh Bagwell and her ex-boyfriend Randy Wood.
Randy Wood was an impressive-looking young man. Dark-haired, physically fit, looked like a typical high school football player. Randy was highly regarded in the community. He had even been elected homecoming king, so he was very popular on campus.
He lived with his grandma, who supported him. Randy didn't have a lot, as opposed to some of the others.
As football practice was closing, I sat down in the locker room with Randy. He recited what he recalled of his activity during the night when Heather came up missing. He said he was with Josh Bagwell. There was a trader, a travel trader. We learned that 3 guys were at that party: Randy Wood, Josh Bagwell, and Curtis Gamble. And they had been playing dominoes and drinking.
And then like 10:30 at night, Curtis and Josh and Randy had gone into a little town named Comanche, bought some food, and then came back, and they had just crashed at the camper. But they had not seen Heather. So the next thing we wanted to do was to talk to Josh and Curtis to see what their stories were.
They head to the home of Josh Bagwell, Heather's current boyfriend.
Josh lived with his grandparents. They were highly regarded, had been anchors of the community.
Investigators speak to Josh's grandmother, who owns the trailer.
She basically was telling us they had set up camp out in the travel trailer, playing dominoes. Perhaps they were drinking a little much, but they were not involved in any nefarious conduct, according to her.
What did Josh say? They're all drinking a little, we get some food. Very same story.
Their final stop is the third man at the trailer, Curtis Gamble.
Curtis Gamble was known around town as the rebel, the one who people liked to be around, but at the same time people feared.
He'd been through juvenile system before. Curtis tells us, I'm over at Josh's, haven't seen Heather. There wasn't really anything suspicious.
They pretty much corroborated what they were doing that night, and it didn't concern the death of Heather.
So now we're thinking, is there somebody else out there that we need to go talk to. Because somebody in this town knows something.
Investigators return to Heather's high school for new leads.
The professional staff at the school was very cooperative, from the principal superintendents all the way down.
The high school athletic director said that he had seen Heather in a pickup going down the street with former high school students.
But it was in the early morning hours after the disappearance, which obviously is big time as far as the timeline goes. He said he met a vehicle belonging to Jody Freeman and then a passenger, Eric Thompson, and claimed that in the vehicle with Jody and Eric was Heather Rich.
Detectives need to question the young men about the sighting. They start with the owner of the truck, Jody Freeman.
Jody admitted they was out riding around, messing around.
But Freeman denied the fact that Heather had been sitting beside him.
Jody claimed he really had no relationship at all with Heather. He just knew who she was. So we go to Eric Thompson. He said he knew Heather, but he also claimed that Heather hadn't been in that vehicle, that he had not seen Heather that morning.
With both men's stories matching up, the team must find another way to determine if they are on Heather's timeline. They speak to Eric's girlfriend.
She claimed he was home the actual night of Heather disappearing.
This means he could not have been the person who called her from the payphone the night she left the house.
She was able to place him at home at the appropriate times. You get a good feel of how comfortable people are on what they're telling you, how they're able to recount the events of that day. Their stories were consistent with one another's, and the other facts and circumstances that we could confirm completely led away from them. So we were able to eliminate them as suspects. The athletic director was able to identify, of course, the vehicle and the person that was driving it, and he was correct in identifying the other male passenger. He just misidentified Heather. These people are doing their best to find Heather, just like you are, so that's where you get the false sightings.
As investigators continue to canvass the town, a new name starts to come up with increased frequency.
And I learned from my conversations that there was a man by the name of Craig.
Craig had a reputation of being a rough and tumble person that was on the criminal side of the law. Craig was older, full-time employment, wasn't a high school student.
We knew he was furnishing marijuana and or methamphetamine to some of the school kids. And he had allegedly furnished marijuana or methamphetamine to Heather Ridge.
It was thought that there was some sort of narcotics transaction that he may have been involved with that Heather'd find out about.
Heather might have known something about that, and that's why she was killed.
So Craig is someone that's getting the finger pointed at him, and someone that we need to focus on.
Detectives searching for the killer of Heather Rich have identified a local drug dealer as a suspect in her murder.
Methamphetamine's a big problem. Where you know there's drugs involved, there's a very real possibility of a fatal consequence.
They bring Craig in for questioning.
Yes, he knew Heather. He knew her casually. They weren't in any sort of relationship together. Didn't hang out together.
He did admit that he had provided her with alcohol, but he denied any knowledge, any involvement in any form or fashion with her death. Craig said that he hadn't seen Heather since a football game on September 20th, 2 weeks prior to her disappearance.
We focused on his timeline, where he was the night that Heather disappeared, what was his work schedule, who could alibi him. He is more than willing to provide his alibi corroboration.
Craig claims he was at home with his mother the night Heather disappeared and went straight to work the following day.
His accounts of his whereabouts and his activities leading up to the disappearance of Heather was corroborated through witnesses and through his work history.
There were some folks who believed Craig could have been involved because of his alleged drug dealing ways. But to me and to the other investigators, this was not a guy who would commit a murder.
Pursuing the drug angle further, investigators focus on Heather's peers.
The youth, the high school students, was a bit of a closed society. They were hesitant to talk to the police. There was an obvious mistrust of law enforcement.
Could be a number of reasons why that was. Number one, there was a little subculture in Warwick, Oklahoma, of narcotics.
One of the big reasons in small towns why kids get involved in drugs is absolutely, without question, boredom and lack of opportunity. People will wax nostalgic about small town America, but part of the danger is getting wrapped up in the drugs, the alcohol, and that closed-minded behavior.
These kids were going, we don't care who you are, we're not talking to you. It was the most bizarre thing I'd ever seen. You know those kids talk, they're on the phone. Heather was on the phone constantly. You know those kids know something, but they're not talking.
Hoping to break the silence, detectives take a different approach.
The main reason why we had the tip line was just to get the information to the investigative teams as quickly as possible. It wasn't as if we had hundreds of tips, but we'd have 20 or 30 tips every day.
One of the leads quickly catches their attention.
A marina employee who was working at a sizable marina on Lake Murray in Oklahoma called us and reported that he had seen Heather on I-35, that they were traveling the same direction, and he saw her in a vehicle as they passed each other.
This was on October 2nd, within 12 hours of Heather's disappearance.
We drove to Lake Murray and met with this young man.
The marina employee, Tyler Datton, immediately sets investigators on edge.
And in our conversation with this man, he became obviously nervous and was providing information which to us as investigators seemed to be a bit deceptive. The way he started reacting to my questioning and how nervous he got, you know, my internal lie detection meter started skyrocketing. It's almost as if he was trying to insert himself into the investigation.
When a person is overly helpful, You have to take a step back and ask yourself, why? What are they hiding? Why are they giving me all this? Often that's a defensive mechanism. That's just to throw them off the scent mechanism as well.
The local marina employee said he had met Heather when Heather's family had opened up a business through the summer at the marina. There was some sort of acquaintanceship there. What that acquaintanceship is, I believe, was very casual from Heather's side and probably a little more of a fixation from the employee's side. Maybe he had envisioned some sort of relationship with the victim that was just a vision and not a reality, and had acted upon that fantasy.
We offered him the opportunity to take a polygraph. And basically the questions would be, do you know what happened to Heather Rich? Are you involved in the disappearance or death of Heather Rich? And he failed the polygraph. So we continued to think that there was some possibility he had knowledge that he didn't want to share it.
It didn't add up. And you start questioning as to the motives. This person had a connection to Heather that was not normal.
After failing his polygraph, detectives are sure that marina employee Tyler Datton is lying about his sighting of 16-year-old Heather Rich on the day she disappeared.
We asked for consent to search his pickup. We went through the pickup looking for fibers, anything at all that might give us evidence or indication there was evidence that Heather Rich had ever been in that pickup, or that any fibers from that pickup might have been on Heather's body. But we found no evidence there that would connect the Lake Murray witness to Heather.
When asked where he was the night she died, Tyler says he spent it at his father's house.
We weren't able to verify that that was accurate. He did not have the opportunity on the night of October 2nd to have made a phone call from a payphone. So we were able to say fairly definitively that this guy did not kill Heather Rich. This is one of those things that happens so often in a high-profile investigation, because you have people who want to be involved just so they can experience the excitement. And it's for us as investigators to be able to tell the difference. We were frustrated because we had gone through so many leads and we still didn't have anybody in jail. And there's this thought within law enforcement, if you don't have the bad guys captured within 48 hours, then the investigation may be going nowhere, that it may be classified as a cold case. My wife and I, we had a daughter at that time who was about the same age, bore some resemblance to Heather, and that daughter was a high school cheerleader as well. I could not help but think about my own children and the problems and the feelings that those parents may have had. And so, as investigators, we have got to provide those answers.
19 days after Heather's disappearance, investigators get a break.
The owner of the local hardware store called and said, just prior to Heather's disappearance, 2 young men had come in, and that those 2 young men had purchased 4 boxes of shotgun shells.
They had actually purchased Winchester double-aught buck, the same brand and type of shotgun shell that was used to cause Heather's death.
And they provided us with a receipt showing those 20 rounds of shotgun shells were purchased by Josh Bagwell. The owner said that there were 2 young men came in. We showed the photo array to the owner. She reviewed those and she immediately identified the second person as being Curtis Gamble.
So now we've got some pretty substantial leads that is pointing in a direction that we were initially pointed from the very beginning, which was this party that may have occurred at Josh's travel trailer.
The party took place during the window of time Heather is believed to have left her house.
We had 3 guys, Curtis Gamble, Josh Bagwell, Randy Wood, were at that party, only a few blocks away from Heather Rich's house.
And we've come to find out that Curtis did have a shotgun, and that apparently was pretty proud of it.
So we started looking at Curtis Gamble. We'd spoken with Curtis's grandmother, where Curtis was living at the time. She was concerned about a statement that Curtis had made to her. Curtis told his grandmother that he knew of someone who had been murdered.
The grandmother then reveals another damning fact.
Heather's body was found off the Belknap Creek Bridge. The grandmother knew that spot. She had been there before. She had taken Curtis there fishing as a child. So we're beginning to connect the dots in that he has a shotgun. He bought the shotgun shells. He knows where the murder scene is.
At this point, the investigation is closing in a particular area, and it's closing in very quickly.
So we decided to call Curtis in on the pretense of talking to him about the shotgun he bought.
I introduced myself to Curtis, and I started our interview. He denied any knowledge of Heather Rich's death. I asked him what kind of shotgun he had. It was one of the shotguns that we knew that could shoot 9 rounds without being reloaded.
They press him about the shells he purchased with Josh Bagwell.
Curtis had claimed that the shotgun shells that they had purchased, that he was just using that for sporting reasons, shooting frogs, target practice. He said he could take us to those shotgun shells. He knew exactly where they were. We drive back down to the north side of the Red River at his direction, and he takes us to various locations where he thinks that those shotgun shells might have been ejected after he had used it for target practice. We found all kinds of shotgun shells, but we found no Winchester buckshot, none whatsoever. At that point, I believe he realized that we had so much evidence that he could probably never get out of it. We get back in the car, and I turned to Curtis and asked him, "Are you aware of what happened to Heather Rich?" Finally, he admitted that he knew what happened.
Detectives believe they have finally broken through to their lead suspect in the murder of Heather Rich, Curtis Gamble.
Curtis told a story that he hadn't told before.
Curtis says Heather did party with them that night at the trailer and claims her former boyfriend, Randy Wood, sexually assaulted her.
Curtis said that Randy was concerned because he thought that Heather was going to charge him with rape. So according to Curtis, it was Randy's idea to shoot and kill her.
But after the statement had been taken from Curtis, we arrested Randy Wood, along with Josh Bagwell.
Josh lawyered up, didn't want to talk.
When detectives turn to Randy, he offers up a very different story.
Randy said it was Curtis who fired the 9 fatal shots, and that he basically sat in the pickup with his hands over his face, knowing what was about to happen.
When you have multiple suspects, you have to find a way to corroborate who might have had the firearm on the fateful evening. You're looking for evidence that one or the other is in fact the killer.
Determined to get to the truth, the team scours the records of both men and uncovers something damning in Curtis's juvenile report.
Curtis had said prior to this event that he had fantasized about raping and killing a girl.
It had been Curtis's dream all along to commit a murder such as this.
After what we know about him and the physical evidence that we've already gathered, we believed Curtis was the person responsible.
Using the reconstructed timeline, the team believes they have enough to prove that Curtis Gamble was the ringleader in the brutal slaying of 16-year-old Heather Rich.
Randy and Curtis and Josh were all over at Josh's camper.
They were playing dominoes. They were just having a good time. 2 hours later, the 3 of them get in the pickup, drive to a nearby town to get something to eat or to buy more whiskey. About an hour or so later, Heather received a phone call from Josh Bagwell, her boyfriend, from a payphone. She snuck out of the house. She walked a few blocks to the party that was being had at the trailer. Later on, she was alone in that trailer with Josh, while Randy and Curtis drove around up and down Main Street. And then when they came back about 2 hours later, she was intoxicated to the point that she had passed out. And in that intoxicated state, I believe that both Randy and Curtis either did or attempted to have forced sexual relations with her. She remained passed out. They dressed her, put her in the back seat of that pickup. Curtis drove around the north side of the Red River to the Belknap Creek Bridge. And then he takes his shotgun and loads it up all the way and then he unloads that shotgun on Heather Rich. I want to believe that she never knew what happened when she was shot that 9 times and her body dumped into the creek.
I firmly believe it was Curtis Gamble, but the other 2 willingly participated into taking her from that travel trailer, putting her in the back of that pickup, and driving her to Texas where they put her out on the bridge. And they all knew what Curtis was going to do and allowed it to occur.
On October 25th, 1996, Curtis Gamble, Randy Wood, and Josh Bagwell are all charged with Heather's murder.
Josh Bagwell never confessed. He denied to the very, very end. He never felt badly about participating in the murder. He provided the shotgun shells, he provided the alcohol, he provided the pickup, he provided the means to commit the murder. Curtis Gamble is the absolute epitome of evil. Gamble was the murderer. Josh Bagwell was his assistant. If there's anyone in the group who has any mitigating qualities, it would be Randy Wood. He lamented the fact that he was involved. Randy Wood was just there and didn't have the courage to stop it.
After lengthy trials, all 3 are found guilty and sentenced to life.
For you to take this girl's life and affect their parents, affect their family, affect their community, affect your own future, affect your own life, that's beyond me. I don't understand. What I have peace over is these 3 won't be killing again.
Our job is to seek justice in every avenue, but there really is no justice in the death of a child.
I don't know how you close a wound that's been so devastatingly opened. But her mother and father at least have some understanding of what happened to their child, and then those who caused those deadly wounds are paying the price.
This is just horrific. What they did to this person is just wrong.
A brutal killing.
It was just kind of like a dream, a bad dream.
A dark mystery with multiple suspects.
He built a reputation for beating people, hurting people.
Make no mistake, there were people there that witnessed this, that felt that it was wrong.
We're like, well, can you tell us who did it? He said, talk to the females.
She was irate. She didn't want to have nothing to do with us.
The truth will be revealed.
He tells everybody, if anybody speaks, the same thing will happen to you.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. Nestled along the shores of Lake Michigan, lies the rural community of Covert Township.
Covert is very diverse. You have everybody from the fruit pickers that are coming in, the migrants, to the people that own several $100,000 homes.
A lot of families leave Chicago and come to Covert because we're trying to get away from that city life.
Idyllic perhaps, but there are always dangers hiding in the darkness.
A call was placed to 911 stating that a woman was hit by a car out on Blue Star Highway.
Responding officers find the 34-year-old woman still alive, barely.
The lady was identified as Deborah Boothby. She was saying, "Please don't let me die."
Ambulance arrived, and she ended up dying on the way to the hospital.
7 in the morning, just banging on my door. That's my grandmother and my cousins, and my grandma was just crying, and she was just like, "Your mom's dead." It was just kind of like a dream, a bad dream. I just turned around and went back in my room, lay down, and just was like, kind of in shock. My mom was kind of like the glue. When she passed away, everybody kind of just fell apart. I just cried all the time, all the time.
Despite their efforts, police are unable to identify the person who may have run Deborah over. For 9 years, the case goes unsolved, until Michigan State Police detectives Diane Oppenheim and Kyle Gorham, along with Covert Township's detective Jay Allen, take it on.
So when you open up a cold case, you have to understand the case from ground zero. You have to take it all the way back to the very beginning.
This starts with the original medical examiner's report.
Forensic evidence plays a significant role in cold cases. It may cause investigators to look at something subtle that wasn't picked up initially. Sometimes it could change the entire direction of the investigation.
There was a lot of bruising, and the body was mangled in such a way that it was consistent with a car running over the body. The autopsy report noted the high blood alcohol content. So the theory was she wandered into the road and got ran over.
It's a rural highway. There is a lot of tree cover, especially in the evening hours. It gets very dark where you can't see much of anything.
If it's a true hit and run, it's a vehicular homicide or manslaughter. It is a lesser charge than capital murder.
But it became apparent to us that there may have been some foul play that occurred prior to Deborah Boothby being struck on the roadway.
We focused on an injury to her face, which was consistent with being involved in a physical fight.
She had teeth missing, and there was a large amount of bruising to her head versus directly to the middle torso where she was struck by the motor vehicle.
Her face was completely black and blue. She had lacerations on her face where portions were basically just gouged away.
All of a sudden, you're starting to see, wait a minute, there's more to this. It's no longer a hit and run. It's now a murder.
In cases such as this, it's important to try to figure out the puzzle of what was the sequence of events, because it tells you the story of what happened.
The cold case detectives begin to trace Deborah's movements in the last 24 hours of her life.
We needed to know where she'd been, where she would travel to, who she had been with, up to the point she was struck by a vehicle. We started to talk to folks that were closest to her, family members. She always worked. She was providing a good home for her family. She had a little bit of a nightlife, but other than that, for the most part, she was a single mom taking care of her children.
She lived in that community her whole life. She was also one that was pretty feisty and was not one to back down from anybody. Deborah Boothby's mother said that she had been working that day. She got off work around 7 p.m.
Her mother says Deborah had made plans with her cousin, Brenda.
Brenda and Deborah had actually went to a bar in South Haven, which is nearby Covert Township.
At one point, they split in the evening. Deborah ended up wanting to go out to the Blue Star Lounge, and Brenda wanted to stay where she was at. She ended up going out to the Blue Star Lounge about 10:45.
The Blue Star Lounge was a small after-hours bar that would get a lot of people in the evening hours. It could be a powder keg with things that could happen there.
The family members believed that on this particular night, she went there to confront her former boyfriend, who was Ivory Shaver.
Ivory Shaver and Deborah Boothby had been in a relationship on and off for years. They were always fighting, and there'd been a lot of abusive past between the two of them.
Ivory Shaver had had many run-ins with law enforcement.
Ivory was the type of person that did what he wanted to do. He was just a bad boy, I guess. I don't know if that's what attracted my mom.
The Shaver family is a very prominent family. There are a lot of nice individuals, okay? But like in any large family, there are 2 or 3 bad apples.
My uncle always used to say how he never really messed with the Shavers. They came in packs. So if you had a problem with one, you had a problem with them all.
Detectives learned that Deborah had been assaulted by Ivory just a few days before her death.
There was an argument that took place. It appeared to be over money. He left, and Deborah was pretty pissed off.
As we developed the timeline for this incident and the people of interest that we wanted to speak with, Ivory Shaver was definitely on that timeline.
Ivory was a stone cold man, period.
Michigan cold case detectives have their first person of interest in Deborah Boothby's death, her ex-boyfriend, Ivory Shaver.
He's going to have to account for his movements on that day. And if his explanation doesn't hold water with the police, he's going to be the #1 suspect.
We felt he was an individual that was capable of committing this crime.
They find Shaver in prison, serving time for a home invasion.
When Ivory was initially interviewed, he didn't give up much information at all.
When I was asking him questions about his relationship with Deborah,
He spoke of her very fondly.
Ivory confirms their relationship was over and says he was dating another woman, Chevalier Gill.
He admitted to seeing Deborah that night at the Blue Star Lounge at about 11:30.
He said that he left with Chevalier Gill long before Deborah ended up in the roadway.
He said he had nothing to do with it. And he thought she was walking down the road and an accidental hit.
The violent history between Ivory and Deborah raises doubt about his story.
When you receive an alibi, your primary objective is to disprove the alibi. Telephone records clearly are very helpful, but so are video, CCTV, witness information, canvas information. It takes time. You may spend weeks on it, but you have to chase that alibi down.
They turn to the Blue Star Lounge staff for help.
The bar owner was very reserved, didn't provide us with a lot of information. The bar owner had a girlfriend that also worked out there. And when we asked her about the number of individuals that were in the bar that night, she was very quick to tell us that it was 99, which was the allowed limit by the liquor license. But we worked a lot of long hours, and we were able to obtain quite a list of individuals that we knew 100% that were there at the Blue Star Lounge on that evening.
The problem was that nobody was talking.
There was a lot of rumors about it after it happened. But I know there was people there, like people that I knew and was close to. But people didn't really want to say anything.
99% of the people we talked to said I was in the bathroom. Well, if you knew the bathroom of the Blue Star Lounge, it was one stall, 3 foot by 3 foot, and we had 350 people in the bathroom. We started to see that there was a pattern developing here that didn't make sense.
They were up against a number of different factors. One, a lot of the people had criminal records. Two, they were anti-police. When people are vague with the information that they're giving, that's an indicator to us or any investigator that there's more information there. And the people just do not want to be involved or are scared about the information that they do have.
They just never wanted to get themselves involved. If they talk their fear that now I have to live in this community, nobody wants to be the snitch.
I think that was the most difficult part. They did not want to be talking with us.
All too often, we run into cases where there's a wall of silence, there's a lack of information, whether it's cultural, whether it's just fear of the killers or the bad people involved in this. You have to sit back again and look for the Achilles heel. What's the way in to get this information?
To break the silence, detectives set up an anonymous tip line.
We received a tip on one of our local drug dealers that was known to be very violent. And we kept repeatedly getting tips on this individual. And everybody's saying, talk to him. When a name that significant pops up, you got to be able to say, okay, no, and rule them out completely.
The dealer, Eric Hollis, was reported seen at the Blue Star Lounge the night Deborah was killed.
So we called him in, and we had him write out a statement what he did that evening. He was at the bar before Deborah even showed up.
Police press Hollis about why he was there in a bid to connect him to Deborah.
He said the reason he went to the bar was so that he could create himself an alibi for his extramarital activities. He was, at the time, married, but he had a girlfriend, so we had to discreetly verify that with the girlfriend. It turns out he was at the bar, basically got a drink and was out of there. Deborah was dropped off at the bar at some point after that. So when you look at Deborah Boothby's timeline from beginning all the way to the end, at no point do those two even cross.
This makes the sheer number of calls implicating Hollis puzzling.
In cold cases, it isn't uncommon for an individual to call in to try and deflect the investigation in another direction.
But the interview isn't a complete loss.
One of the questions we asked was, can you tell us who did it? And it was interesting. He didn't tell us, but he said, you need to talk to those bitches. He was telling us, talk to the females. We now have a direction to go in.
There was a number of women out at the Blue Star Lounge that evening. We started off trying to build that relationship with them, but they were very difficult to gain trust.
Normally, I'm talking to females in a cold case setting. If they're not directly involved, they're going to be the ones that will open up earlier than a male would. But in this area, domestic violence was somewhat prevalent, so there was a lot of fear. They don't want any repercussions. You've got to develop a rapport with them. It may take 4 times sitting down with that person on different occasions before they even warm up to you enough to get the information that you need. So it's a long process, and you got to have patience.
Their perseverance pays off when the interviews unearth a familiar name.
There was witnesses that talked about Letitia Holling. She was a friend of Chevalier Gill's. And she was placed at the Blue Star Lounge that evening. She was partying with Chevalier Gill. It was believed that Letitia Holling was one of the last ones to leave.
This means Letitia may know who Deborah was with and how she left the bar.
So with that, we had to really take some time to dive into her timeline and who she hung out. We looked into some individuals who were in the car with her when she left the bar. Kyle and I and Diane, when we sat down with them, one flat out just was in tears and then told us Letitia Holling ran over Deborah Boothby.
After 9 years of silence, detectives believe Letitia Holling may be involved in Deborah Boothby's tragic death.
In talking with Letitia Holling, she was forthcoming about knowing Deborah. And she is also someone who Chevalier Gill confided in.
But through the interview with Tisha, Tisha never admitted to hitting Deborah. So Letitia Holling was one that we did offer a polygraph examination to.
If they're dealing with someone who, say, is not a career criminal, sometimes the polygraph alone can be enough to intimidate somebody into confessing, because it is a tool. You're hooked up to this thing, your palms are sweating, your face is dripping wet, and you're all nervous. And then they realize, am I going to get caught in a lie?
We asked Letitia Holling, did you hit Deborah Boothby while leaving the Blue Star Lounge? the results came back that she wasn't being truthful. We knew at that point when she failed, she's withholding something. So now we gotta go back and figure out, okay, where are you being deceptive? Tell us again what you remember. Now we're going at you hard because we know somehow you're involved. Tisha did break down crying, so I do believe that she knows something happened. But here's a single mother of 2 or 3 kids, just sitting here going, I'm not saying a word. I've got babies to raise. Is it right? Absolutely not. It's completely wrong. But sometimes as investigators, we have to put ourselves in that position and say, okay, I guess I can understand.
We had to keep building that rapport, building the confidence, and really building that trust.
Over 3 separate interviews, Letitia gradually begins to open up.
She said she witnessed an argument between Deborah Boothby and Ivory Shaver at the Blue Star Lounge that evening. So that brought to light this whole new element. And then you add in, the altercation that they had earlier in the week. Ivory knew a lot more than what he was willing to tell us.
She said Deborah confronted Ivory Shaver, whom was with Chevy Gill.
It appeared to most to be a fight involving a love triangle because Deborah saw Ivory with Chevy.
The drink was thrown on Ivory by Deborah. And then that caused a verbal fight.
And she indicated that things were just getting out of control. And she had no way of being able to stop it.
The Blue Star Lounge closed that evening early due to this altercation that was occurring inside.
When we had this information about this fight, we thought, okay, maybe there's a little bit more to this story. Now, when you go and do your interviews, you want to focus on that fight.
Detectives return to their pool of female observers to learn what happened to Deborah after the fight inside the bar.
One witness we went into a very dangerous part of Kalamazoo to talk to. We took her to a fast food joint and purchased a burger for her. And I knew that she had some domestic violence in her past. So after about an hour of getting nowhere, again, we used that emotional side. Hey, I know you were a victim of domestic violence. This could have been you. This almost was you a couple times. And that's when she broke down. We then learned there's a second fight in the parking lot.
She tells detectives she witnessed a mob attack Deborah right outside the bar.
She described the beating of Deborah Boothby as dogs fighting over a bone. That's how fierce it was.
Everyone was kicking and beating and stomping on her.
The witness reluctantly names the ringleaders. Her ex-boyfriend, Ivory Shaver, Ivory's nephew, Scotty Shaver, and a local drug dealer named Ed Foster.
Scotty Shaver is just a young kid who was out of control, short temper, in and out of trouble all the time with law enforcement. And that's, from break-ins to drug trafficking, you name it.
Ed Foster was an associate with the Shaver family.
You know, they're both trying to build their own drug trade.
Ivory, Scotty, and Chevy Gill were all punching and kicking Deborah.
They would have never did that had I been there. Never. Somehow she ended up being there by herself. So she wouldn't have been there by herself had I been there.
At one point, Ed Foster hit her so hard that she was motionless on the ground of the parking lot. Everybody froze and thought, oh my gosh, she's dead.
The witness then adds a puzzling detail.
Deborah had been placed into a car, unconscious. And as they were leaving the parking lot, the vehicle that she was in had turned left, which meant that the vehicle went south. That became a question point because we know that her body was found north of the Blue Star Lounge.
Now all of a sudden, you're starting to go, well, wait a minute. If she's beaten, and everybody's saying, oh yeah, she was knocked out, and people were saying, we gotta go, police are gonna come. And now she's being dragged and put in a car. At what point was she walking down the road and gets hit? You're going, there's more to this.
With multiple suspects on their radar, detectives must unravel the mystery of what happened to Deborah Boothby after she was attacked and taken from the Blue Star Lounge.
I think a lot of people were scared of Ivory Shaver and Scotty Shaver at that point in time.
We knew that people were reaching out in the community from the Shaver family and were threatening witnesses.
After it came out, they were investigating them. Scotty came to me, he was like, can I talk to you for a minute? And he was like, I just want to tell you, I didn't have nothing to do with it. I mean, he just swore up and down, I wasn't there, you know, I didn't do anything. We've known each other for years, I would never do nothing like that. So I said, well, the truth will come out eventually. But I just stopped talking to a lot of people because I didn't know who to trust.
With the powerful Shaver family stonewalling, detectives must find a way to get straight answers about Deborah's death.
We knew that Adrienne Burnett was in that circle. We were told that she was in a dating relationship with Scotty at that time.
We went right to her house, knocked on the door, and she said, what can we do for you? And we said, we're here, we've reopened the Boothby case. Adrienne turned white as a ghost.
You can see the fear factor in her face. Obviously, there's something. She's really concerned about why we're there.
Adrienne's now a mom herself and a very good mother. I mean, she was going to school and really engaged with her kids. I could tell that this had been weighing on her. I was just hoping that she was finally gonna get some relief.
We're like, talk to us about this.
Adrienne Burnett admitted to saying, yes, I was at the Blue Star Lounge that night. But she also was pretty vague in her recollection. She said she really didn't have much to do with the fight or any part of that, and was really trying to distance herself from the situation.
When we're just making contact with somebody for the first time, we try to employ a lot of empathy to let them understand where we're coming from. We're asking them to understand it as if this was their own loved one as well. And to let them know if it was, we would be out here doing the same thing for them.
And after the course of 4 hours, Adrian Burnett admitted to driving over Deborah Boothby. And that's when we kind of stopped and we said, okay, we want you to go through the whole timeline of what happened, what you did, and she agreed. Adrian was at the bar when everybody got kicked out of the bar. The fight continued.
Adrian's account was when it went outside. It was a very, very brutal assault that occurred.
And then what happened?
She tried to defend herself. She did a very good job, you know. At first, she held her own for a minute there. But with that many people, you know, it was difficult.
Deborah Boothby had gotten knocked down to the ground.
Ed Foster, Ivory Shaver, and Scotty pick her up and drag her to Chevy Gill's car.
Ivory and Scotty pushed her in there and made her get in.
Was she trying not to get in?
Yes.
Adrian Burnett got into her own car. Scotty gets in the car with Adrian. Scotty tells her, follow that car. They drive out of the parking lot, head left. They get to Covert Township Park to a little roundabout.
We get to the dead end. We pull around the little circle area. Scotty gets off the car.
They drag her out of the car, where all four just take turns.
Chevy choked her. Scotty came in here, Ivory hit her.
Did she appear to be scared?
Yes. She's screaming, you know, yelling. Scotty hit her one last time, and that's when she fell down to the ground. After that last punch, she didn't move anymore.
They've beaten her so bad, they believe she's dead.
Chevy's screaming, you know, what are we going to do with her? We can't leave her here, you know, everybody's seen us put her in the car. Ivory said, okay, well, put her back in the car, and we're going to run over her, make it look like it was an accident.
They load her up in Chevy Gill's car. They drive her back to the lounge. In the parking lot are still several individuals. Scotty gets out and tells everybody, if anybody speaks, the same thing will happen to you.
Detectives coax a disturbing confession from a fearful Adrian Burnett about the murder of Deborah Boothby.
Ivory and Ed Foster have laid Deborah on the road and have run her over with their car. After that happens, Adrian Burnett is now pulling out of the lounge.
We get out of the driveway, and Scotty says, run that bitch over.
And Adrian guns the car and runs her over. Tisha Holling was right behind, probably ran her over, was like, oh my gosh, what did I just hit? Adrian Burnett goes straight home. She is now distraught. Scotty tells her to shut her mouth, and she explains to us she was in fear of her life because if she said anything, if she gave him up, she would be dead.
As far as brutality, this was one of the most brutal cases. Make no mistake, there were people there that witnessed this, that felt that it was wrong. but they also had feelings for themselves of basically being scared of this other family.
Where was anybody to help Deborah Boothby? All these people were her friends, all these people she knew, and nobody cared. They still treated her like an animal.
I was angry. I was angry with people that were there that didn't stop it. 'Cause I was around these people for that whole 11 years. But I always knew in the back of my head there was something not right. Just the fact that people that I knew and was close to had a hand in taking my mother away. For what?
Armed with witness statements, police move on the 4 conspirators.
Ivory was in prison the whole time we were investigating, and he was up for parole, and we actually went to the parole board and stopped his parole because we knew he was dangerous and could threaten people.
We discovered where Ed Foster was located. We had him picked up in Indianapolis.
Scotty Shaver and Chevalier Gill are also arrested. But as the trial begins, a conviction isn't as simple as it seems.
The thing that made me nervous was our witnesses were so scared. Our suspects are very dangerous individuals, and if you speak, you could end up like she did. During this whole time that Adrienne was working with us, she was receiving threats from Scotty and Ed Foster, being reminded to shut up. One of the things Kyle and I did, we were reassuring witnesses. We would drive to wherever they were, pick them up, get them to trial, and the whole time we were reassuring, nothing's gonna happen. We will protect you. They can't get to you. Just tell the truth.
It's the testimony from those eyewitnesses that reveals the details of Deborah Boothby's final hours.
Deborah got up, went to work. She got off work around 7 p.m. After she got home, she met up with her cousin, Brenda, and she ended up going out to the Blue Star Lounge about 10:45. There was a fight inside the Blue Star Lounge. And eventually she was escorted out of the building about 12:30. There was an additional fight that occurred in the parking lot. She was then put inside a vehicle and moved to the Covert Township Park, where Scotty Shaver and Chevalier Gill and Ivory Shaver and Ed Foster continued to beat her. And they came up with a plan to dump her body and make it look like an accident.
Deborah's body was placed out on the roadway and then ran over multiple times.
And at approximately 3:16 a.m., she was pronounced dead.
I believe the motive was hatred, just an opportunity to just beat somebody senseless. They had just no moral compass to continue to beat and beat another human being to the point that they just killed them.
Thanks to the bravery of witnesses and the hard work of detectives, Deborah's killers finally face justice after 13 heartbreaking years.
Scotty Shaver, Ed Foster, Chevalier Gill, and Ivory Shaver all received life sentences and are serving them now.
Adrienne Burnett, she cooperated with us during the whole investigation. She pled guilty to second-degree murder. She was offered a 20-year sentence. In that 20-year sentence, she would be eligible for parole in 6.
I did spend a lot of time with the woulda, coulda, shouldas, but I try not to think about it now.
Listening to those details and just seeing how brutal people could be to another individual, it was tough. It was tough. And it really reaffirmed why I do what I do.
That whole law enforcement system, it just inspired me. And I just wanted to be a part of that. I ended up becoming a dispatcher. I'm the person that's on the other line, helping with CPR or helping deliver a baby. And I'm the one who helps other people get home to their families. So I like it. It's a really good job.
Anytime you solve a homicide, there's a sense of satisfaction because of the level of crime that you're working. But in a cold case in particular, it's different because people around the victim may feel that the police have forgotten them, forgotten about their family. And when you can solve it, it's just like no other feeling out there.
You could apply just about every one of the 7 deadly sins to this homicide. Greed, lust, envy, anger.
A brutal killing.
The first thing that came to my mind was ambush. Someone waited for him and shot him.
A dark mystery with multiple suspects.
We had suspicion that there may have been an affair.
There was an actual fight between the two of them. He said, "There's this guy I know that wants him killed."
The truth will be revealed.
He started crying and said, "Yeah, I'll tell you everything."
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. Maryville, Indiana, a thriving community just southeast of Chicago.
We have a little bit of everything. We have a large residential area. We have a large business district. It's one of the largest towns in the state of Indiana.
On average, we're usually in the single digits for homicides. We were leading up to a holiday weekend. This was the day before Good Friday, when we received a 911 call. Initially, dispatch said that there were shots fired and that there was a man down.
The victim is 33-year-old John Parker.
John had a vacuum cleaner, door-to-door sales business. He was an amazing salesman. He was hardworking, and he was successful.
He's rolling along one high to the next, and this terrible thing happened to him.
Detectives Donald Toth, Robert Wiley, and Jeff Rice are given the task of hunting down the cold-blooded killer responsible for John's murder.
When I arrived, what I saw was John Parker laying on the ground outside of his vehicle, directly in front of their business office.
John was struck once. The bullet entered lower behind the ear to the back of his head.
The crime scene itself was what I would call fairly pristine. In other words, there wasn't a lot of evidence to be had there.
There were no signs of struggle. There were no signs of a fight. Initially, the first thing that came to my mind was ambush. Someone came up from behind and shot him, and he very likely never had a chance to see or hear what was going on.
From the very beginning, we knew that this one was going to be difficult.
Detectives turned their attention to reconstructing the last 24 hours of John Parker's life.
The timeline of the victim, where they were and what they were doing, is crucial to any good investigation. And when we look at the people involved, be they suspects or witnesses, finding where they are when this occurred is very important. The only witnesses that we located when we got there were Ben Love, the office manager, and Judy Parker.
Judy was crying. She was obviously upset, which we understood as the wife of the deceased. She said that that night, probably at 6:30 or 7 o'clock, John and Judy had gone out to dinner at a local restaurant.
My daughter calls me and said, I'm taking it to Walmart and I need to get it done. I'm going down and see I've got it at the office. So I was stuck. I didn't pick it up for a park on the home.
They finished their dinner. They went back to the business after the restaurant.
Both of you walking together.
We walked in together.
Are you walking in together?
And then Ben was asking us, well, can I just go home? John's like, no.
Just so.
Yeah, I'm out of here. And when I got in the car, sat down, and I looked up and I seen John coming out of the office.
Saw him through the window?
I saw him through the window. This is when I reached down to get my cell phone out of my purse. And then John came, and I seen him coming, so I looked up, and he passed the door. And he opened the passenger door, and he says, well, I'm getting this food for Ben. And okay, that's fine. And that's when I turned back around. And then all of a sudden I hear, and I see somebody go in. I see a figure. And I get out of the car. I see him laying there. And I stood there for a second and I went to John, touched him. I said, John. And I went back in the office. And I opened the door and I go, Ben. I go, Ben, call the police now. Call the police.
Judy really gave us nothing other than this mystery man dressed in dark clothing that she only caught a glimpse of.
Generic? Yes. But that's your starting point.
They shift their focus to the office manager.
When we talked to Ben, Ben's emotional state was that of just being completely stunned. Ben said that when John left, he went to the bathroom, and then when he came out of the bathroom, Judy was inside the business and said that John had been shot. He said that from the bathroom, he didn't hear any sounds. And since he was in the bathroom the whole time, there was nothing Ben could give us.
Although Judy and Ben are unable to provide anything concrete, police still manage to develop a theory.
His Rolex watch and his big gold ring were on his hand. No one went after Judy's purse. Also, it's our industrial area, and it is somewhat secluded.
The opportunity to rob somebody is nil. So it just didn't seem like a random event. It seemed something more personal. And we asked Judy if there was any enemies.
Who do you think would have done this? You could have, not even would, I mean, in your heart of hearts.
I have no idea.
One of the first steps was to do our victimology on John. We wanted to see who he was, what he was about. John made his first million when he was in Michigan, before he was 35 years old.
He was able to build this vacuum cleaner franchise into considerable wealth.
And it shows his work ethic and his drive. He knew what he wanted, and he knew where he wanted to be in life. Judy worked for John in Michigan. John fell for her right after meeting her. He was just smitten. Judy had 2 children from a previous marriage, Christina Hicks and Danny Hicks. I believe Christina was 16 or 17, and Danny was about 15 years old. John had picked up the family and moved them down here and renamed the company J&J Industries to be John and Judy Industries.
When investigators are looking into a businessman that was murdered in front of the business, obviously you want to get a little bit of insight on how he conducted business. Did he have a bad business deal? Did he owe someone money?
Here we have a victim who, from a relatively young age, became a multimillionaire. To move that fast in his business, he likely stepped on a lot of people. And whether that fits into the motive for the death, these are all items you have to look at.
Since we had already talked to Judy, who was the last person with him, we wanted to talk to his brother to see what had gone on in case something had happened to spur this ambush. David was very angry and very upset when we met him. He began immediately talking about an altercation that John had had with an ex-employee about a week or so prior to the homicide. The employee's name was Quentin House, and apparently there had been a dust-up in the parking lot between John and Quentin. David told us that they started yelling at each other and there was pushing, physical grappling between the two.
Detectives learn John fired Quentin after only 1 week.
John was not an easy person to work for, and he could be difficult as a boss. He could be very demanding. He was not afraid to swing the axe. If you were not pulling your weight, John would drop you in a heartbeat.
There's always a possibility that someone could have been that upset at work and that they would take it to the level where they want this person dead. It could be that Parker pissed off the wrong individual.
Detectives have identified a man John Parker argued with days before his murder. Disgruntled former employee Quentin House.
To have someone very early in the investigation that may have had a beef with our victim was a terrific lead. Quentin House said the employees were required to make a certain amount of sales demonstrations to get paid. But Quentin said he was required to do more demos than he was initially told. He said, you know, I worked there a week and I was supposed to get $400 and I didn't. He had said that he refused to do these demos. And that's why they had words in the parking lot. Quentin House told us at the time of the murder that he was at his friend's house and that they were playing Xbox. He was forthcoming. He gave his friend's phone number. We definitely had to spend some time verifying his story to make sure that we had a very good picture of what happened that day. And it became evident to us that Quentin House was alibied and that we had to move on from him.
Police continue the search for leads in John Parker's business affairs.
We made it a point to talk to every active employee that was at J&J Parker at the time of the homicide.
What we ultimately determined was that there was a romantic relationship between the office manager and Judy.
What we were learning was that there were several employees that would either stop by work to check their schedule or would come in when there shouldn't have been anybody there, and Ben Love and Judy Parker were caught having sex by several different employees.
Obviously, Ben became a suspect. We didn't know if he was trying to get rid of John to be with Judy and possibly take over the business. So our investigation more focused in that direction.
They bring Ben Love in for a formal interview.
Ben was smooth, he was mildly charismatic.
Ben denied that there was any sort of romantic relationship between them.
He stated that he and Judy were great friends, that they worked very well together, that they were a great management team, and that he was, just like a member of the family.
But Ben's proximity to the murder was the problem. He acknowledges that he was there.
There was a great portion of that evening when he was the only one in the office. And the information that we had about what happened at that point came from Ben's mouth.
So you've either got Ben as the shooter, or you have an unknown third party that approached and committed the homicide. However, if Ben wasn't involved, he may possibly know about what occurred. We had to get him to break loose with any information that he had.
Under pressure, Love finally cracks and reveals an incident from a year earlier.
He said that Judy and John had brought her cousin, Tim Mendoza, up from Texas. Tim had had some problems down there, and he was given the opportunity to turn his life around. Ben and Tim Mendoza became roommates.
But the Parkers' act of generosity seemingly came with strings attached.
Judy's daughter, Christina, had come to the apartment, and she had asked to have a private conversation with Tim. Tim went into the bedroom with her. After Christina left, Tim came out of the bedroom bewildered. He was depressed, he was sad, and he confided in Ben. He said that he was not brought to Indiana to turn his life around. Judy had used her influence on John to bring Tim up here so that Tim could kill John Parker. We've never seen anything like this. This is the stuff that they make up for TV.
That's what gave us the first inkling that the family was involved.
We confronted Judy with that plot. She said that Tim had seen John be mean to her, grab her by the arm, or call her names, and that Tim offered to kill John for her. She told him not to even think about it. And at the time, she dismissed it because Tim had left to go back to Texas. But Judy didn't mention Tim until we brought Tim up to her. And Judy's story changed throughout the course of our interviews. What we started, it was that she and John were in love and they were successful. Everybody liked him. But the more we talked to her and started asking pointed questions, then it came out that John had a temper and he became less of the saint that she was painting the picture of the very first night. In my 25 years of doing this, I've seen the emotional arc after someone's killed. We watched her and her body language and the things she said, and especially the things that she did when we weren't even in the room. It was a little different.
Detectives want to speak to the other family member involved in the alleged plot, Judy's daughter, Christina. But they quickly run into a problem.
Indiana state law states that if a parent is a suspect in a crime, that parent cannot give permission for law enforcement to talk to their children.
We were contacted by an attorney that indicated that he was representing the entire Parker family, and he was putting us on notice that we were not able to approach or talk to them anymore.
But police can investigate Tim Mendoza's whereabouts at the time of the murder.
What we'd gathered from law enforcement authorities down in Texas was that, in fact, Tim Mendoza was locked up at the time and wouldn't have been capable to be the shooter on that Thursday night.
As Mendoza is ruled out, detectives receive a curious new lead.
We had a phone call from a school resource officer in Crown Point, which is the next town south of us. He told us that he had some information for us.
There were two kids called Earl and Kevin. They were residents in a juvenile detention halfway house where they were allowed out if they had jobs in school, kind of reintegrate them into society. They came to the attention of the Crown Point Police Department because Earl was found to have $201 on his person. And one of the rules of the halfway house was you didn't get to have cash. Their story was that they were scamming this kid from school.
It was ultimately told to us that they had received that money from Judy's son, Daniel Hicks, to have John Parker killed.
Detectives now have 3 new suspects in the murder of John Parker: his stepson Daniel Hicks, and 2 of Daniel's friends, Kevin and Earl.
Danny Hicks is the second eldest of Judy's children. He did have his share of run-ins with law enforcement, with school officials. He's a bit of a wild child. We had felt at that time that we had a very large break in the case, that we had discovered a conspiracy to commit this murder. But we still don't have the trigger man that killed John Parker. So we needed to find further evidence, again, to corroborate the story.
The same state law that blocked an interview with Christina also bars their way to Danny. Their hope now lies in connecting Kevin and Earl to the murder.
When we talked to the individuals at the juvenile center, we were able to confirm that Kevin, in fact, was detained at the facility on the night of the shooting and would not have been involved in that particular homicide.
Detectives learned that Kevin's co-conspirator, Earl Dantzler, was already out on the night of the murder and has since vanished.
The timeline for us seemed to be similar to that of our homicide, which made us very suspicious. We had put out locates on him. Every person that had a snitch in every town was told to look for him. His picture was passed around. His name was thrown around. Earl was everywhere and nowhere all at the same time.
The hunt for Earl does, however, throw up a new lead.
We had a gentleman come to the police department and say that he had information that Mike Campion might be involved in the homicide. Mike Campion lived in the same neighborhood that Earl Dantzler lived in. I would say that he was locally infamous. People knew who Big Mike was. He was a local flop-about, for lack of a better word, didn't have a job, just kind of hung out and bummed cigarettes off people, and just wreaked a little bit of havoc when he could. We found Mike's roommates, and they had said that Mike had come into some money, and that was unlike him. He was buying things, and he was spending money on other people. And again, this led us to believe that he might have been involved.
They finally track Campion down.
He told us that he had spoken to Earl pretty regularly before and after the homicide. And he alibied himself by saying that he had been arrested in February, but didn't get out till April 20th, which would have been 3 days after the homicide. What we learned by checking the arrest records through the jail was that he had been out since March.
With his blown alibi and connection to Earl, detectives must now determine how Mike Campion fits into the timeline of John Parker's murder.
No matter how confident you as a suspect are that you are not going to confess, you should check that belief at the door. My clients always tell me they're not going to talk to the police. But when the police hand me over the disclosure, I see a 2-hour confession. The police will break you down. They've got the skills and they've got the time.
His story initially was that he talked to Earl, and Earl told him that he was hired to kill John Parker. He changed that story into, well, I did talk to Earl about it, and then I went there in the car with him. So we pushed him on some details. Then he admitted to hiding behind the dumpster with Earl when Earl ran out to go shoot John. He had a voice stress test where he was found to not be truthful. So then we really pressed him on his involvement. During the middle of the conversation, he put his shoulders down and his head back and he said, I want to tell you guys this one thing, but if I tell you this one thing, I know I'm going to prison. At which point, Don and I exchanged a bit of a look, and we said, go ahead and tell us. So then he tells us that it wasn't Earl that ran up and shot John Parker, but that it was him.
We asked him to show us how you approached him. Show us where you shot him. And Mike indicated that he had approached John from behind. He had shot him in the head, and that he left the area.
So we get the confession. All this work, all these people that we'd looked at, and we had someone that actually admitted to being the trigger man. At that point, there's a certain amount of elation.
I made the decision to detain him and incarcerate him at the Lake County Jail.
But you can't just go to court with someone's confession. Anybody's statement can get thrown out at any time. A crime as big as homicide and murder, you have to be able to corroborate the story and prove that it's true.
To confirm Campion's story outright, they need to speak to Earl Dantzler.
We had sent out feelers and we had done searches on family members of Earl and his grandmother, Dolly Villagomez. and we learned that Dolly had moved to Las Vegas. We reached out to Las Vegas PD. They sent detectives over there, and the detectives verified that yes, Earl was living out there.
Investigators went to Las Vegas to find him and put together a timeline compared to the time of the murder.
Earl confirmed that Danny had hired him to kill John Parker. He confirmed the transfer of the money with Kevin. But he said that he and Kevin put this plan together that they were going to take this money and there was nobody to report this to. Because how do you report that somebody stole the money that you paid them to go kill somebody? They felt that it was a perfect scam. But then Earl said he and Dolly moved to Las Vegas, and that was the last he had heard. He put Indiana in his rearview mirror and didn't know anything that had happened until we showed up at his doorstep. We tried to confirm where he was for the homicide. He was nowhere near the state. He was 1,800 miles away, and there was no way that logistically we could put him in the timeline of events that led to the murder of John Parker.
This throws Mike Campion's involvement into question.
The largest hurdle that we had with Mike Campion's story were his repeated conversations with Earl Dantzler. I saw Earl at the store. I saw Earl walking down the street. He told me how to make some money. Earl was in Las Vegas the whole time. He was never here. That was too big of a hole in his story for us to consider Mike Campion a viable suspect. I don't know what his thought process was, but we came to believe that he would rather be infamous than nobody. So he put out there that he was the one that pulled the trigger. It was a great story to tell.
I've read about him, and you hear stories about false confessions. I had never had one. Looking back after that interview, that was a false confession.
It was frustrating. It was. But by this time in our investigation, frustration was a daily occurrence. Every day it was beating our head against the wall, just trying to make a little bit of progress. Our suspect pool in this case was so large, we found it beneficial to just start eliminating people that it couldn't have been. And eventually it came down to Judy, Danny, and Christina.
Detectives investigating the murder of John Parker are now convinced his own family are directly responsible, but have no evidence to prove it.
We felt that all the pieces of the puzzle was there. There's just one piece missing. Judy Parker, Daniel Hicks, Christina Hicks. We needed someone there to feel a little bit of pressure, maybe to talk.
It's very frustrating when you have information that you believe is very relevant to the point that you could solve this crime, this murder, but you're prevented from getting there through a set of circumstances. You can't go home and have sleepless nights over something like this. You have to keep thinking of a way to get around it. Keep working on the case.
With Judy's lawyer blocking any interviews with the family, detectives need to find another way to place the gun in one of their hands.
One of our ploys was a flyer that said we were looking for information involving a homicide that occurred in Maryville of John Parker. We must have handed out several thousand copies of this flyer. A short time later, we received information that 3 other students had actually been approached by Christina.
What we learned was that Christina was soliciting people she knew to see if they had a gun to sell. What we found out, she met a school friend in a parking lot of a local restaurant and had purchased a .25 automatic pistol. And this happened about a week and a half prior to the homicide. This was a huge break for us.
The prosecutor's office kept telling us, we want more. There's not quite enough. We want more.
We felt that it was necessary to serve a search warrant on the house. We showed up early one morning, knocked on the door. We woke them up out of bed. Everybody was in their PJs. It was a methodical, almost grid search of the house. But we didn't find the gun. To say it was a setback, it doesn't meet that standard. We were very upset. It let all the wind out of our sails.
It was frustrating to feel in our hearts with the interviews that we had and all this information surrounding Judy, Christina, and Danny that, hey, we want to charge.
Leads and new information were coming in less and less frequently. We learned that Judy and Ben had moved back up to Michigan. Danny had moved out to Arizona, and Christina had gotten married and was living locally.
We felt that we were so close that it could be solved, but we just needed somebody to break. You just have to keep chipping away at it, and hopefully something will break loose.
In February 2006, 3 years after the murder, detectives get an unexpected break from an unlikely source.
Christina's husband, Eric, had some run-ins with the law, drug-related.
So we picked him up, brought him to the station. I started leading into if Christina had ever talked to him or spoke to him about the murder of her stepfather, and he said she has. He didn't know a whole lot of great detail, but I gave Eric enough information in the interview to let him know that we knew what had happened. In his mind, he thought, oh, they're all caught. They're done. We asked him, I said, are you willing to go in and speak with Christine? He said, I'm willing to do anything to get out of this trouble for this drug warrant. He gets in his truck and he drove home. We followed behind. He goes up and started speaking with her. And he's telling her, you gotta speak to Detective Rice. He's a nice guy. He knows that you're involved. He knows that their mom's involved. You need to go in and talk to him. And she starts crying. She goes, okay, I'm ready. I want to go in and talk to him. I do.
Detectives have finally broken through to one of the conspirators in the murder of John Parker. His stepdaughter, Christina.
She told us Judy planned this out and sold everyone on this plan. Judy had a game plan for her riches. She had a game plan for how she was going to get it.
Christina admits that John was killed for his $1 million life insurance policy.
Judy was able to convince everyone that once the insurance paid out, she was going to take care of everyone.
And Judy kept telling them, we'll all get basically a piece of the pie. She didn't care about anything but that money. During the interview with Christina, she gave detail how her mother gave her money to go purchase the gun that actually was used to kill John Parker. And she said that Danny was the person that shot and killed John. And Judy forced him to do this. It was disturbing to know that Judy was setting up her own children to kill her husband because she couldn't find anybody else to do it.
When we approached Danny out in Arizona, I made the statement to him that, you remember me, I'm Detective Toth from Maryville. We just talked to Christina yesterday, and she gave us everything. And I think it's time for you to come clean and talk to us about why it happened. And at that point in time, he started crying and said, yeah, I'll tell you everything.
Danny was just overwhelmed with the stress and the emotion that he'd been holding in for all these years. And he admitted that it was him.
Christina and Danny's confessions, along with a detailed timeline, give detectives a clear picture of John Parker's final hours.
John spent most of the day with his brother. That night, probably at 6:30 or 7 o'clock, John and Judy had gone out to dinner. They dined at a local restaurant. Before they left the restaurant, Judy had made a phone call to home and spoke to Christina.
Judy called home because Danny needed a head start. He needed to be at the business waiting for John.
Christina gives Danny the keys to her car. He's not even old enough to drive. Takes her car, drives it all the way into Maryville, parks at a local business, and walks up and hides behind a dumpster.
At approximately 9 to 9:15, John and Judy traveled to the office. They went in, spoke to the manager, and came out.
Danny walked up behind John. And shot him in the back of the head.
You have to put a lot of blame on Judy because Judy was the adult. I think Judy convinced the two teenagers, whether it be by greed or ignorance.
Judy Parker, Daniel Hicks, and Christina Hicks are arrested and charged with murder.
Christina got assisting of criminal charges, and she got the least sentence. Danny got sentenced to 23 years, and Judy got 33 years for orchestrating the actual homicide itself. It is a tragedy. John fell in love with this lady. He took her kids in. He made them part of his family. They were all going to reap the benefits of his hard work. John was ambushed. Cut down in his prime. Nobody deserves that.
It saddens me that something so silly as money would make them want to do that. But greed was probably one of the first evils, you know. What's the Bible say? The love of money is the root of all evil.
There's no doubt in my mind that she brainwashed Danny and influenced him into killing her husband. I kept thinking back and looking at that mug photo, and I'm seeing this little boy. I felt for him that His mother made him do this. She's an evil person to make her own child do something so evil.